Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get going in just a minute. A lot of people joining. We have some new people coming on today, so we'll give it a couple minutes, but thanks for coming and thanks for being early. All right, there's still some people trickling in, but I want to be cognizant of time and make sure I leave some time for questions for people. So we'll jump right into it. For those of you who are new to joining these calls, welcome. Hope you find it valuable. This is the first one of 2026, so Happy New Year, everybody. We've really hit the ground running in January in terms of our hemp advocacy work, working with a number of groups in the hemp and Bev Elk space. Today, we're going to talk a lot about the federal fight that we're going to prioritize that over some of the state things because I think a lot of people have questions on the federal level. But in future presentations, there might be more granular overview of some of the state activity. For example, things we've seen in Ohio over the last couple of months, New Jersey, and others. But today's call is going to be more focused on the federal because there's a lot of activity right now, and obviously an upcoming deadline, if you will, with January 30th's vote for the next funding package. So we will jump right into it. As I mentioned, for those who are new, the Coalition for Adult Beverage Alternatives was founded about a year and a half ago. We are based in DC and focus on the federal initiatives and challenges in front of us. So originally it was FY26's language that got us engaged and really wanted, us to focus on making sure that we didn't have the existential threat that unfortunately we do. And of course, the Farm Bill as well, maintaining to make sure that the definition of hemp allows for these products, particularly low-dose THC beverages, to remain legal and move forward with legislation that allows for us to have access through traditional retail channels. We do get involved at the state level. However, we do not fund lobbyists at the state level. We are usually a partner to another group to help with the education, whether it is talking about the food science and co-packing or talking about the route to market and how they can efficiently regulate. Our core principles are based very similarly to how other adult beverages are regulated. 21 plus, we advocate for the low dose hemp derived THC category. We've defined low dose as up to 10 milligrams per serving. However, states currently are regulating different dosages, and we really do support states' rights and their ability to regulate this category, especially because that is how they're used to regulating the alcohol channel as well. Third-party testing, we do advocate for the QR code on the packaging, which candidly, I have not seen a beverage on the shelves recently that doesn't have a QR code. So it looks like that's really being heavily supported. And obviously, we don't want to see these products in the hands of minors. We want these products to be sold where alcohol is available and properly age gated. And we also support chain of custody and standardized labels, things like that, that again are very much commonplace in mainstream CPG and adult beverage. And we might be one of the only groups on the Hill saying, please regulate us, but also tax us. Taxing us allows us to fund programs that enforce the regulation and clean up the marketplace. Because until the marketplace is cleaned up, we still run the risk of a bad actor or just an unfortunate incident backfiring and taking the entire industry back. And when I say that, that's not just hemp, that's all of cannabis, because we're still coming out of prohibition and a lot of people still are trying to build trust. So when a negative incident happens and it's broadcasted through the media, it does create complications for the entire marketplace. So looking at the how 2025 wrapped up, we had a very big high growth year. We had a lot of wins last year. Unfortunately, we did have a loss that I'll get to in a minute, but we had a lot of wins. Last year, the hemp-derived THC beverage category was about $800 million. It's expected with continual growth to hit around $5 billion in 10 years, but the only way it can do that is if there is regulation in place. Without a pathway forward, it is very difficult for the market to grow, stabilize, to get investment, all things that most of the people on this call know. Based on who registered today, we have a lot of beverage brands that have engaged. We also have some regulators and wholesalers and retailers. So we have a mixed bag. So some of the messaging I might tweak to adjust to direct to a specific, group on this call. But for the most part, I want to try and keep this as targeted as possible. So the market size continued to grow. We saw multiple retailers join. We're going to talk a little bit about some milestones we've even seen in the last month since the legislation passed with the funding bill. But in general, we're seeing 20% growth month over month. We're still seeing growth in retail today. And 1/3 of the consumers coming into some of these stores were new to the store. They weren't necessarily cannibalizing existing alcohol or other adult beverage sales, which I think is a really interesting point because a lot of times I think groups are hesitant to allow for something that might be taking up market share, taking up shelf space. But for retailers, this was bringing new people in and really widening the opportunity, and oftentimes just meant a higher cart size. Many people who consume these products also consume alcohol and, of course, other CPG products. So there's a real opportunity for this to fill holes that are currently being created by changes in consumer behavior in general. But all of our growth moving forward is dependent on regulation, and that is why our group focuses so much on getting behind sensible regulation at the state and federal level. So the bad, 2025 wrapped. I'm taking a little bit of a page here out of Spotify's book. We had a big fight on the Hill over hemp, right? We all know how that ended. 0.4 milligrams THC per container. Anything else falls under the Controlled Substances Act. There were no carve outs, so there was no carve out for beverage or any other category, but we were given a 1-year implementation timeline. The deadline for that is November 12th, 2026. And what people need to remember about this in particular is this vote was really about passing a funding bill and ending the government shutdown. Government shutdowns hurt a lot of consumers. They hurt a lot of people in general, and we wanted to get back to work. And that is a very important understanding, is that it wasn't necessarily a vote against hemp. It was a vote to move forward and fund the government and move forward with a lot of other initiatives that are priorities as well. Because as much as we'd like to believe it's all about hemp, it's not all about hemp. We did get an early Christmas gift. Obviously, the executive order for rescheduling cannabis and marijuana to a Schedule 3 is a real opportunity for those that operate in the regulated space. It does also create an opportunity for pharma to get in, and the goal for our president was to get these therapeutic products into the Medicare and healthcare system so that senior citizens and patients could get access to these products that they need and also get reimbursement through their healthcare programs. What we got was a little bit of a nugget in there through the executive order and the press conference, if you listened in, and it was acknowledgement that the current current restriction on the zero point 0.4 milligrams of THC per container, that definition is too restrictive. And it eliminates the therapeutic products that President Trump wants people to have access to, but obviously it also eliminates products that would qualify under the intoxicating category. So the products that Trump wants people to have access to with that definition aren't possible, and minor cannabinoids are drastically impacted by this as well. And minor cannabinoids play a very important role, particularly in the therapeutic space, not as much in the recreational consumption space. So that opportunity is something that we are working with now and working with legislators to provide a pathway forward. Because with the big boss, if you will, giving the thumbs up that we need to make some adjustments here, it provides an opportunity for us to do this, do it sensibly, and do it the right way. It is extremely important to understand, though, that Trump, for those of you who know his background, know that he is not a fan of intoxicants, with the exception of Diet Coke, which everyone knows I love my Diet Coke, so I'm guilty there too. But his goal is not to create a pathway necessarily for intoxicating products like what we represent. That said, we will continue to work forward and utilize this to help us with our current ask at the federal level, which is to get an extension to that 1 year implementation timeline. So support for regulation, we have kicked it off real strong. Here we are in the second week of January, or second full week of January, I should say. And there's already been 2 fly-ins. One is currently happening. Actually, both of them might be kind of overlapping right now, but there were a number of people in town this week supporting Baird's 2-year extension, which was filed earlier this week. The biggest supporters that we've seen on the Hill and get the most positive response are the farmers. This week, our lobbyists spoke with a number of farming groups who confirmed that their members have already planted for next harvest, which means if this legislation and this timeline doesn't change, they don't have a crop to sell. And that puts farmers in a very bad spot. So the farmers came to the Hill this week, and they've been very vocal about needing adjustments so that their crop is something valuable that they can continue to sell. This is incredibly helpful to see the farmers, some of which are, 3, 4, 5, 7 year, probably even more generations working as farmers. Farming is a very hard industry to work in. The more I think all of us have learned about the Farm Bill, I think we understand that even more. As a result, they really do need this to make sure that they have a foundation for their business in the next year. So that has been heard loud and clear and will be continued to be echoed. That said, they're supporting the extension request, and we are hoping that legislation comes out early next week that we can also rally behind, because it's very hard to get support for an extension without committing to other regulation. Because the whole goal here for McConnell and others was to clean up the existing marketplace. And a lot of us agree, right? Like when McConnell holds up that poster and that poster has 10 products that are high dose THC, maybe have synthetic cannabinoids, the new and novel cannabinoids in there, Skittles with a Z, they're definitely marketing the kids. We want those products gone too. And it's really hard to get support when you're standing there saying, I want to get rid of these products, because we want to get rid of those products too. But we all know that you can't regulate away demand. The demand for these products is there. The demand for cannabinoids and THC is there. And there is a way to sensibly regulate this in a way where we provide safe access and the ability for adults to make adult decisions. And in our case, drink adult beverages. But what's happening right now is that hemp and BevAlc are very much unified in their ask for this extension. They are collaborating, they are sharing resources, they are working together to create a future for not only our category, but the rest of hemp as well. Right now, we are all united saying the same thing: extension, extension, extension. Since the Baird extension documentation was filed, there have been a number of congressmen that have come out in support, primarily on the House side, which is where this was introduced. We drastically need support on the Senate side. So this is an opportunity for everyone on this call to mobilize their partners and to contact their congressmen, particularly their senators, and say, we need someone to carry this if this gets through the House onto the Senate side, because we want to see this go through. The goal is to get this included in the funding bill on January 30th. And we're not anticipating a government shutdown. We are anticipating that they will fund the government, put a few bills through that we've already seen some minibuses be introduced, and that they will then put a CR for any of the remaining items. Going into an election year, we will likely see CRs throughout the year versus changes in regulation mid-year, primarily because there's an election. Ruffling feathers, there's different focuses when are going into an election year, and making change from a regulatory standpoint isn't always beneficial to them. However, there can be opportunities where changing regulation is helpful to their campaign. And we will talk about that in a little bit when we get into more of the strategy conversation here. But it is important right now. We really need to focus on senators and getting support in the Senate because the House has a number of champions that have become more and more vocal and are signing on to support Baird's recommendation here. It's also very important for everyone on this call to understand that we're not single-threaded here. Everyone in hemp, while we are working on this extension, is also working on what's next. So if we weren't to get the extension, because extensions are rare, and I think it's responsible of us to be cognizant and set expectations that explain that extensions are rare. The fact that we are also getting this much support for an extension, that's also somewhat rare, particularly because it's a hemp topic and oftentimes has been polarizing, just like the rest of cannabis has been over the years. But we are getting support. We are getting traction and movement. We do expect legislation to be introduced next week that provides a pathway forward for low-dose beverages in particular, but also other categories within the space. And that is all good in helping our momentum to hopefully correct a wrong that will provide a pathway for safe access. The regulatory pendulum. So for the last 2 years, right, we've been fighting these battles at the state level. We've also been fighting the federal level. And oftentimes when something happens, everyone runs to the most recent thing and they go back and forth. We need to focus on both. And I know that's frustrating to hear because we also have businesses to run. We have a lot of issues to focus on and tackle them, or to tackle rather, and so does the federal government. There are a lot of other priorities they are focused on, but this is why we need the states to be involved. Yes, we are still seeing states' bills stalling, and when someone says, "Look, I'm not sure I want to push forward legislation and implement it when this could be going away in November," that's a very logical response for someone to say when they're looking at resources and how do they divvy them up for state initiatives. But we need to show them that if they want to keep this, particularly states that have existing regulations, if they need tax revenue, this is an opportunity for this to come from that in their state. We need to show them that their model is going to impact the federal landscape. Because what happens at the state level trickles up just the same way that at the federal level it trickles down. We need the state associations who have advocated for regulations in states like Tennessee, Texas, Florida, a number of others. Those groups that have really been vocal need to continue being vocal, leaning on their congressmen, their whether they're in the House or in the Senate. We need support. We need support across the board. What's great is we are a bipartisan category. We have support from both Republicans and Democrats. Republicans really like that we are asking for states' rights. They like the opportunity that they see. They support the growth of business. There's real opportunity here, but we need to make sure we do a great job at doing the education. How these products are manufactured, how they are being sold and go to market. And we also have to be prepared to compromise. We know this, and right now our ask is for this extension. But when it comes to let's say we do get the extension, we can't change and not push for legislation. Our words and our actions, they need to be in lockstep with each other. So if we get behind a bill while we're pushing for this extension request and we get the extension, we need to make that bill happen. And even a perfect bill, it takes longer than a year to get a perfect bill through. It could take multiple years. So we need that timeline, but we need to also show that we are committed to getting regulation through. So we need to do that at the state level, and we also need to do that at the federal level. One thing that's changed in the last year, when I think back to how the beginning of last year started, there were a handful of groups lobbying on the Hill for hemp. From the beverage side, it was really the Coalition for Adult Beverage Alternatives, CABA, and WSWA. Now we are joined by so many industry partners. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but right now, just this past last week, there was a lobbyist meeting in DC where all of the lobbyists were sharing resources and talking about strategy and next steps. and all of the top firms are represented because some of the brands have gone and hired their own lobbyists, which thank you guys for doing that if you have invested in that. It's also great that you've had them working with our lobbyists as well as WSWA's, the roundtables, and others so that we can unify our message and make sure that we're not duplicating efforts. That's incredibly important. But the idea that now the top lobby firms are representing this category, that changes how we are viewed. That legitimizes our industry. Our partners now, we're working closely with NACS. I mean, just today and NACS in their newsletter, Circle K is expanding into Texas. We're having huge milestone indicators while there's the risk of an existential threat. That's kind of unheard of. Initially, after that vote went through, people lost investment. People started pulling back. Certain partners that were looking to engage pumped the brakes. They're still very much watching it, but they did pump the brakes. And now we're seeing kind of a different story. Sales are up. Retailers and beer wholesalers are mobilizing. They are creating groups to help advocate for this category. They are getting louder at the state level. We are still seeing state associations get involved and push for legislation. We expect bills to be introduced in certain key states in the next couple weeks with session reopening. There are opportunities and there's a lot of momentum, and we need to keep that momentum going, and we need to continue creating positive friction that shows that there is demand for this category and an interest in regulating it. It's amazing to see sales climbing the way they are, and we'll talk about some of the highlights that we've seen over the last week in a second. Many brands are reporting to me that they have had their best months in the last 2 months. Three brands in the last couple days have told me that they have closed their funding rounds, one of which was an eight-figure deal. There is momentum behind this, and we are showing that we can do this responsibly with extremely strong partners as well. Now, there are things to watch. Right now, it's January, right? The deadline for the funding package or that went through in the funding package is November 12th of 2026. So there's a lot of time to go through inventory and still sell this product. But so we do need to pay attention to some trends that we've seen with some groups where they might not expand into new markets. Maybe they were planning to, but they're holding off because they're going to focus on winning their markets they're already in. Some wholesalers and retailers are like, we're not going to take any new brands right now. But a lot of groups are just actually saturated. They've brought in a lot of brands. I mean, Total Wine has aisles of these products now, right? It looks very different than it did a year ago. There's going to be inventory management. Some brands are going to maybe delay or stagger their production runs a little bit differently so that they don't take on too much inventory. That's just good business sense. It doesn't mean that we don't have the momentum to continue selling. It means people are being pragmatic, and that's important that everyone is realistic about what could and could not happen. But it's also true that we have lots of positive momentum, and I think that that just goes to show that our partners are really leaning in versus stepping out. This is the time to step up, not out. We've talked about this a little bit on the last call, but I think one of the most visible announcements in the last week was Sprouts entering the market. And it looks like they're expanding into other markets as well. So this is just even more momentum behind a category that people have been kind of eyeing and an industry that people are wondering if it's going to be here in another year. People are doubling down. There's opportunity still out there. So if you are a brand that has maybe hit some challenges over the last couple months because of this momentum might help you open other doors and might help you partner with new groups that you didn't have access to before. Make sure that as you're talking to your partners or potential partners or in a pitch, that they're aware of these announcements because we're on LinkedIn all day. I know everyone on this call is on LinkedIn a lot. And we are watching everyone's posts. We're liking, we're engaging, we're sharing in our Slack channels. We're doing all the things. That doesn't mean that every other partner is doing that. We are very loud in our own echo chamber. Make sure that it is in your pitch deck, that there's expansion here. Other groups' wins can create a win for you. So you might not be in the Sprouts portfolio right now. That's okay. You might be in the next one. You could be in future ones. Just make sure you're aware of the opportunities out there because sharing those and educating your network about those opportunities could lead to future opportunities for yourself as well. I do want to talk about the CABA priorities. This is a really huge focus for us. We do have a federal strategy and we have multiple, like I said, we have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C so that we are not single threaded. If the extension doesn't go through on the 30th, we are not dead in the water. There are other opportunities that we can work on and that we can prepare for, and no one pivots better than the cannabis industry. We know how to do this and we will do it successfully. So priorities. As some of you guys have known who've been on this call before, I like to use the monopoly example of we need to play the political game more effectively than we've done in the past. We need to do what alcohol, tobacco, and a lot of other leading industries did. We need to work with these congressmen. We need to support their campaigns. We need to have regular communication. The lobbyist situation that I talked about is critical. All of that helps us gain momentum. Our priorities that we are looking to fundraise for are focused on polling, getting data that really shows who our target consumer is and where they are based, particularly in key markets that have regulation. It helps get more momentum and understanding behind who's consuming these products and why and where they're buying them. It can also help elections. At the end of the day, right now, with an election year coming, a lot of politicians are going to care about maintaining seats. It's a very thin margin up there on the hill. And if people want to maintain their seats or gain new ones, they need to know that this can actually gain popularity for them. Knowing that for beverage, I think many of the brands on this call, their target demo is the 30 to 45-year-old female, which is not necessarily a demographic that's scoring really well with the Republicans. So there's an opportunity for that polling data to really show that this is something that they can safely get behind, and it's representing what their constituents want. Their constituents want these products, and we need to provide better data and information for them to do that. Marketing and PR, like I said, positive friction. We need good momentum and milestones to be reported repeatedly. We need to make sure we're fair about the marketing and materials that we send. I've been very vocal on these calls about describing these products, particularly the low-dose THC beverage products, as health and wellness. If you are selling your product at a beer garden next to alcohol at a music festival, that is an adult beverage. That is not a health and wellness product. That will determine and change where your product should be sold in the grocery store, what aisle it's in, what regulatory channel and oversight groups, I should say regulatory bodies oversee your category. But also we need to be very transparent and honest about what our products are. The first one, while I know a lot of people are like, well, if you have one low dose beverage, you might not feel it. It doesn't mean it's not intoxicating or potentially impairing. And I think the other thing that we need to talk about is the fact that a lot of people don't want to say the word intoxicating. And I understand that a lot of people don't want to say that word. Technically, intoxicating is based off the root word toxic, and that you are poisoning your body by drinking or consuming something that is considered an intoxicant. That is not what the consumer hears. That's not how regulatory, or I should say legislators hear. Technical scientists, maybe they're analyzing that word really or dissecting it that way. But I've watched movies where they describe love as intoxicating. Consumers hear intoxicating and they're not scared of that word. Um, Impairing is a word that people have often suggested that we replace intoxicating with, and impairing is not a wrong descriptive for what products with intoxicants are. However, has anyone ever tried to buy you an impairing beverage at a bar? If someone asked you, can I buy you an impairing beverage? You would probably call the police. That's not how consumers hear the word. So we need to be very clear about using vernacular that consumers are comfortable with and understand, that also legislators understand. A lot of times, if we try to not use the word intoxicating and replace it with like mood boosting, they think that's us hiding behind the fact that our products are intoxicating. We're not hiding. We know what our products do. We know the impact that they have and the effects that they have. We can celebrate that. We just need to be transparent and responsible about how these products are manufactured, marketed, sold, and what the dosages are, and what channels to market make sense based on that. The marketing PR is also very important, and the awareness around not only our category, but the polling data and things like that, because we can specifically target, members on the Hill with that data. But we also need to make sure that our marketing isn't putting down other groups, especially ones that we are working with, like alcohol. I have been taking a lot of meetings with liquor associations, beer and wine associations, individual brands. They are naming THC beverages by name that are calling or talking down about alcohol. They're watching, they're hearing. And when we're asking, like, please support our initiatives because we want an even playing field, we want to be working within your system, working with your wholesalers, with your retailers. We want to be, we want that even playing field. The first thing they say is, well, so and so is doing this, and that's a violation of our trade practices. And that's true. You don't see vodka talking negatively about tequila or beer. You see them celebrating where their products win and where their products do very well. That is what we need to do better. Celebrate the experience. I mean, I'm shocked. I'm waiting for a brand. There's someone out here who's going to do it, to do Happy Wife, Happy Life campaigns. We know that who our target demo is. We know that we can win really great opportunities and experiences just by celebrating what our product has in it. We do not need to put down other categories. If you are a brand that is putting down other categories within alcohol, particularly partners that we need to move legislation forward, you are hurting the industry. Plain and simple. We need these partners. We need this support to get this to the next level. So I want you guys to hear that. And it's not me trying to be on a soapbox and lecturing people, but it is being called out. They are watching, and that could negatively impact your brand in the future. I want everyone on this call to succeed. Every single brand, every single one of you. If we are putting down alcohol, we are hurting everybody. And it's important that we understand that. So please consider this when you are looking at your marketing, when you're looking at your advertising. Think about who might see it and think about how that could be impacting our entire future, because it is extremely important and it will hurt us in the long run. We are getting more involved in supporting our champions as well. And what I mean by that are congressmen that have been vocal. Baird, obviously, we know a lot of people supported Rand Paul when he was our leading advocate. There are other groups that we are getting behind in various states that are becoming more and more vocal, and we are going to support them. We are going to do fundraisers for them. We are going to be educating them and making sure that they understand how the legislation is supporting our industry, but also creating a safe atmosphere. Because I can tell you the number one thing that all of these people ask us is this safe? How can we be sure? And then they want to be walked through it. They want to know how these are being manufactured. They want to know how they're being distributed. They want to understand how to read a COA, because that gives them peace of mind if they are going to back an entirely new industry that's coming out of prohibition. And if they're going to do that, they want to have other support. They don't want to be on an island by themselves. We really appreciate that Rand Paul did that. He was the loudest advocate and didn't have a ton of support behind him. We need to get more support for all of our champions so that they're not on an island by themselves. And we can do that. And to do that, we need to fundraise as an industry. Now, I'm talking about the low-dose THC beverage category specifically and talking to a lot of beverage brands. But the next couple slides, a lot of what I'm talking about is about anyone in the hemp space right now or looking to support the hemp space. We need you to get involved. Extension, extension, extension is what we are moving and what we want. And there's a lot of associations out there. And yes, I represent CABA and I would love for you to join CABA. And I'm going to talk about what our goal is for fundraising and all of those things. But in general, if you are a brand, you should be involved in this in some way. It does not mean that you are going to be involved in the day-to-day. It doesn't mean you're going to be invited to all the fly-ins, because sometimes smaller is better. In this case, it was great to have about 100 farmers, it felt like, in town. But it's important that you understand how you can support and get involved, and also know that there are other options for associations. I represent the low-dose THC beverage category. If you represent or your brand has gummies and other products that has gummies or other products, you might be a better fit for the US Hemp Roundtable. And that's okay. As long as you're getting involved, we are all collaborating right now and working together. So find someone that represents your interests. If you're not joining a group that is involved in the federal fight, you're not doing as much as you can. You're not maxing out your potential in terms of supporting the industry. And I don't think anyone wants to get to November 11th and go, could I have done more? There is nothing worse than that. And I've said it on the last call, say it again. When what happened with the funding bill happened back in November, I played that in my head. I played the what if game. It is the worst game in the world to say, what if I had done this different? I don't want anyone on this call to have that. I want everyone to be participating in some fashion. So look at the associations out there. If you have questions or want me to provide a list of associations you can potentially join, I will do that. Feel free to reach out to me so that I can help you connect with a group that's right for you. Hopefully, CABA is one of them, but if it's not, that's okay. Like I said, just you want to be involved. Um, there are different ways, and I listed them here, and I'm not going to read them all off, but there are different ways that you can work within these associations and analyze them to know if they are a good fit for you. Talk to their members, talk to their leadership, talk to their lobbyists. We're all very transparent. There's no reason that that can't happen. Now, I will tell you, I don't want to bog down all of the lobbyists in DC with them taking random questions if it's something I can answer, because a lot of those groups need to be on the Hill taking meetings. They need to be representing us. They need to be sharing information. We don't want to create distractions. However, it's important that you take the time to see what groups represent what you're aligned with and then go from there. How to support. So CABA, I will tell you, we are looking to raise $2 million. And I mentioned lobbyists before, and I want everyone to understand on this call, lobbyists are very expensive. And I know a lot of the hemp groups on here have maybe not been involved in this in the past. A federal lobbyist can run between 15, 30 grand a month. And I know a lot of you have been involved at the state level. So I know that this is a lot and this seems daunting because we've already spent so much money with all the state level battles. But this, if the federal government doesn't get this right, the state regulations don't matter, not nearly as much. Some states might fight for different pathways forward, and there might be certain opportunities that emerge. But it is important that we focus a lot on the federal right now. It will reduce if we get a baseline at the federal level, it will reduce the volatility that we currently see at the state level. So that's another reason why it's important that we work with groups to get this right. With CABA, all of your dues and all of the dollars that are donated will go towards our efforts. We do not have any paid staff. We are volunteer run and operated. I have the same skin in the game that you guys do. My job is to put myself out of a job almost in this case to get this done so you guys don't have to lobby at the federal level. Now, there will probably always be something that we need to fight for. It's not like, you know, WSWA and NACS and all these groups, they all exist because there's always something new, and we will always be working to improve upon regulation. But my job right now is to get us to a point where we have a federal foundation. And once we get there, life is going to be a lot easier for all of us. So that is something that we are heavily prioritizing. Recruiting support. Not everyone on this call has the same resources available to them. And obviously, even though some people were able to close some fundraising rounds, that doesn't mean everyone is going to be able to do that. Not everyone's in the same position. So as a result, look at your Rolodex. See who your retail partners are, see who your wholesale partners are, make sure they're engaged, that they're working with various groups, funding these efforts. You never know what sort of resource you might have in your Rolodex. And I think that's really important that we realize that the brands, I know a lot of us are pulling back. We're analyzing what events we go to. We're, being more conservative with our budgets, as you should. Again, it's about giving what you can. And sometimes giving what you can is a resource, not necessarily financial. Yes, I have a $2 million goal here because things cost money. But at the end of the day, you might have something else that's very, very valuable that isn't dollars. We have a new fundraising option. We threw this on the website recently. You can actually make a one-time donation to CABA to put towards specific lobbying efforts and advocacy efforts. On the website, we allow payments up to $5,000. Anything higher than that, typically people want to do via ACH, so we can allow that as well. And we can create an invoice and provide receipts and all of that information to make sure that you guys have all the documentation you need for supporting us. So I wanted you guys all to know that's there. I am still offering the hourly consulting. This month, my schedule is extremely tight due to a number of events. But on top of that, there's just a lot of things going on the Hill, and I want to be as present as I can so I can represent us as best I can and not play the what if game later. The goal for me moving into actually, we're going into here. My goal moving into this Q1 and Q2 is to be boots on the ground and be more present federally. We did a ton of education last year at the state level. I went all over. I think a number of people were I think there was a pool at the end of the year with a number of people trying to guess how many miles I had gotten in the last year. All I know is that I had, I believe, close to 150 flights. While education is important and certain events are certainly a priority, and I will participate in the ones I think are important, I might not physically need to be present at all of them. We might lean on some of our members to represent us at events and handle education when I can't be available. Because right now, the primary focus for CABA is the federal fight. And me being here, being able to very quickly go to a fundraiser event, and be flexible with my schedule is beneficial for all of us. So I am trying to put up boundaries, if you will, to make sure that I am prioritizing the things that matter most right now. And that existential threat, November 12th of 2026, is the most important thing that we are focused on right now. Q1 events. I wanted to go into a couple of the opportunities that we're seeing over the next few months. And as I mentioned, everyone's budgets are different right now. Not all events provide the same ROI for every brand. So be picky. I get FOMO and have the fear of missing out, but it doesn't mean that I need to be at every event. And the same thing goes for brands. So I wanted to highlight a few, though. There are some really great events that, depending on your focus and how you'd like to be involved, whether you're with CABA or another group, that can be extremely good for your business or just good for your networking and your Rolodex, like I said. January 18th through the 20th, there's the Beer, Wine, and Spirit Summit that is being put on in San Diego. CABA is on a panel on the 20th. We will be talking about the federal landscape and a lot of the opportunities and also, of course, the risks that are in place right now. But our goal there is to really make sure people understand that come January 30th, if we don't get the extension, we're not dead in the water. We want that extension. Do not get me wrong, but we have options. We have plans, and we will be working on those to make sure, like I said, that we can pivot if we need to. But the extension is the primary ask by the entire industry, and it provides the pathway for us to get sensible regulation done on time. So that will be a primary focus at a lot of the events that you see moving forward. January 28th, we're participating in an invite-only National Governors Association event. This is a policy event meant to educate governors, and there will be a variety of groups there from WSWA, HBA, and a handful of others. So this is a great opportunity for us to get in front of these groups, educate them, and hopefully gain support. As all of us on this call probably know, we had a lot of governor involvement in things last year. I mean, Governor DeWine most recently with Ohio, who basically said, look, I'm not going to implement any regulation right now on this. I'm just going to institute a ban until we know what's happening November of 2026. We need governors to understand the opportunity and what we can do. So this is why we're prioritizing that event. Now in February, there's two events that I think a lot of people on this call have been to or have already RSVP'd for, which is great. WSWA Access Live, that is the Wine and Spirits Wholesaler Show. This is, February 3rd through the 5th in Las Vegas. There's a lot of wholesalers, a lot of liquor partners. I will be out there. If you are curious about CABA, fundraising, anything like that, I'm happy to take meetings and have discussions with you or any of your partners that you think that might be valuable for. But the goal for this and why it's a good event for a number of brands is to meet wholesalers. If you are looking to expand and you have the ability to target maybe a new market, having a booth, might be a good idea, but just attending and walking and booking meetings with the people who you know are going to be there can be valuable as well. So definitely check out Access Live. If you haven't been there before and you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions I have. And if I don't know the answer, I will try to connect you to someone who can. Another one that's going to be a little bit different than last year, but still very high quality event is the CANA Summit. So, last year, this was called CanadaTaCon. It has been rebranded since there was a big focus on beverage last year, and there will still be a beverage focus this year. This event is going to have a lot of regulatory discussions, a lot of leading voices in regulatory from regulatory bodies to leading wholesalers to leading retailers, all talking about the landscape, what they're seeing, and talking about how they're getting involved and how they're supporting this industry and what they're hoping to accomplish. There will be, we will be present there. We will be talking a lot about fundraising and how you can get involved, which is going to be a primary focus for us. And given the timing that this event is at the end of February, it will be after, whatever happens January 30th, there will probably be new call to actions and different things for people to get engaged. So we'll be educating on that as well at that event. March, there are a couple more events since it's a little further out. I'll not go in as in depth with these, but the Florida Alliance, CABA will be presenting there. We've spoken last year, and this is a retailer show that features a number of liquor retailers from all over the country, particularly the Southeast and Northeast, as well as the Midwest. And then March 23rd to the 25th, CSP is doing their first C-store cannabis forum in Chicago. So if you're focused on the convenience opportunity, as we saw earlier, Circle K, expanding into Texas. Huge markets are opening up. C stores are getting very, very involved at the federal and state level in terms of advocacy. If you're interested in the C store opportunity, this would be a great place to kind of dip your toe in. They have some wonderful speakers from the beverage side, but also in general from hemp and cannabis as a whole. So those events I definitely recommend. I will be actually at all of these. But in Q2, there will be a decline in which events I'm at just based on what we need to focus on. But these events hold a lot of value for CABA in terms of the groups we can connect with and the influence that we hope to share with a lot of the key partners we're looking to work with moving forward. And then last but not least, you guys have seen this slide before if you've been on these calls. Hospitality is the next big growth wave, assuming we get beyond the November deadline, right? We've seen a lot of growth in this category. It's why large format is particularly growing in the market right now. Obviously, all the other formats, ready to drink, smaller format 2-ounce shots or drink additives are also growing, but we are seeing growth on the hospitality side in a big way. And there's a lot of interest in understanding how to serve these products alongside alcohol counterparts responsibly and making sure that servers know what they're doing and how to describe these products. Nothing makes me a little bit, I think there are some very experienced consumers out there that are very familiar with what a higher dose product means for them. And until there's regulation and dosage caps in certain markets, right now we are seeing on-premise consumption options that are beyond the 10 milligram dosage cap, which for someone like me is too much for me to have. It might not be too much for someone else, but that is why we need to get the education down because everyone knows that if you have a negative experience with a THC product, whether it's a beverage or another product, it's hard to go back. And our products, you have too much, it's an undesirable experience. It might not have the side effects of other active ingredients that could be considered negative, but an undesirable experience is undesirable. No one goes back for more if they have an experience they didn't enjoy. So it's important that we get this right. And you really only have one chance. And until we get regulation, any negative experience that happens to get reported or highlighted in any media, we are going to see backlash from. So we need to be protective of what we have and make sure that we have good actors and responsible people promoting this category. And I do want to say, I mean, look, the beverage category, in my opinion, and maybe I'm biased because I work with so many of you, has some of the greatest people in this space. I know most of you, why you're in this space, how you got into it. Many of you know my story of how I got into this space and why I care about it so much. We are at a pivotal moment in time and making sure that we are involved, working together, supporting each other's initiatives, communicating, sharing information is critical right now. And I think we have some of the best people in the space to represent all of cannabis. But we need to be pragmatic in our approach. We need to start with digestible components and bites here. Being reasonable and sensible is what is, slow and steady wins the race. I don't want to be the tortoise. I don't want to move that slow, but I certainly want to make sure we get the regulation right, which is why we're pushing for that extension. And I think the people on this call know that there is an opportunity here. Um, there are people on this call right now that I know don't advocate for this category or don't advocate for intoxicating hemp. Some of the people on this call, I don't think are cannabis supporters. And to you, I say this. This is an opportunity. We can do this the right way safely. We are not, I think there's a lot of people on this call that work in adult beverage that, again, might not be supportive of this just yet, but I think they want to be. And it's up to me and the other good actors in this space to educate you and provide you with the information so you can feel comfortable about bringing this into your portfolio or into your, you know, uh, pillars in terms of what you represent. Lean on us for that. The education is critical, and we have people who can do this and do it responsibly. So don't hesitate to reach out if you are one of those people who is either confused or unsure about this space. Please reach out to us because our goal is to make you a champion, to make you someone who feels comfortable moving forward. Last year, we were dying to get wholesalers to call us. Or to call us back. We were calling them and they weren't answering the phones. And now we're in a very different position where the wholesalers are reaching out to the brands. Even with this threat, I think there's a lot of those people engaging and learning and wanting to make sure they understand the space because no one wants to miss a good opportunity and no one wants to play that what if game. So lean on us to be your resource, to ask questions. If you're at any of those events that I touched on, I'll scroll back a few. If you're at any of these events and you're looking to reach out to me or you're looking for more information or want to set up a meeting, I put my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. Any questions you might have, I am happy to try to answer those. Because the best thing we can do right now on top of gaining champions is mitigating opposition. So anything I can do to do that, I will do my best. Now I'm going to go over to questions to see if anyone's got any here. Let's see. So yes, okay. So one of the question is, doesn't pushing for a 2-year extension of the status quo contradict the stated goal of getting bad actors off the market? So one thing that I think we need to, particularly right now, because there are so many issues in the funding bill that people are analyzing and working on. One of the things we've realized is keeping the ask simple makes it a little bit easier for them to get on board, particularly when there is a tight timeline. Now, I will be the first to say that I am not opposed to them putting an extension through and saying, hey, how about it's 21 plus to purchase? I would be fine with that. However, oftentimes that requires legislation to be drafted and things that they might not have time for. And we are asking to let us work on legislation that could be done within that 2-year extension. That 2-year extension doesn't mean we're actually going to need the whole thing to get the legislation done. We could get legislation done faster. So the 2-year timeline is done based on the harvest for the farmers and how much time they need to adjust, which is why the 2-year is being supported. But I understand that thought of, okay, it keeps the status quo for the next 3 years. Our goal is to use that 3 years to get legislation at the federal level and then also continue pushing at the state level so that we do have guardrails in place and get rid of those bad actors. But I can completely understand that perception of the 2-year extension not sacrificing anything right now. I think that if there's room for negotiation here and they want to get rid of, like I said, that they want to implement a 21 plus at the federal level, great. We'd get behind that. I think right now everyone's united in a simple ask. And again, making adjustments if we need to, if we get the support we need. But right now, our biggest priority is to get support in the House and the Senate, primarily the Senate, which is where we have the least amount of support right now. I will definitely send out to everyone who registered for this call an email template. I will say that the HBA does have one on their website that you can utilize through their portal. It's called Voter Voice. To not duplicate efforts, I didn't feel the need necessarily to also create one of those. I think we can leverage each other's resources effectively, but I will absolutely send an email template. Feel free to modify that to include details or asks or anything that's specific to your business. Those things are the personalized stories do matter. And, feel free to mention all of the other ancillary partners that you support. This is very much as farmers are a priority and for this extension. this is an American innovation story. We are leveraging warehousing and US hemp grown hemp and all sorts of different marketing and banking and insurance ancillary services. Those groups have been able to hire and build departments to support this industry. Those jobs won't have the support, and therefore we have more of an unemployment problem if they eliminate that. It's not just the hemp jobs, if you will, that will be eliminated if this goes away. It's also the ancillary services that are supporting it. They've grown, and that could require a cutback. And no one wants to see that. Again, I think everyone wants to see every good actor survive and thrive. Our goal is to get us a baseline that allows us to grow and create a baseline that allows us to grow and stabilize and then build from that. But I will definitely get an email template out to everyone. We have a few different options, but feel free to modify based on what your particular business model looks like. So the alcohol groups that are lobbying at the federal level besides WSWA. So we have the Beer Wholesalers for Responsible Regulation. That is a new coalition that is focused specifically on the beer wholesalers. Right now, NBWA is bifurcated, so they are neutral on the topic. These beer wholesalers wanted to become more vocal and make sure their voices were heard. They are represented, and this was founded by Justin Ashby out of Southern Crown Partners in South Carolina and Georgia. That group is growing very rapidly, and they have a federal lobbyist, and they are also working with CABA, WSWA, and all of the other alcohol and traditional retail groups as well. There is another group that is being formulated right now that's being led by liquor retailers. This is a subset, if you will. Most of the state uh, retailers focus on the state regulations because alcohol is regulated at the state level. So they don't necessarily always have to be present at the federal level in those conversations because their regulations are handled at the state level. As a result, now they want to be heard. So, there are groups that are forming, and there will be, I think, um, there will be a press release out that kind of declares what they are focused on moving forward. But they are also going to be entering the room with us. So, looking back to a year ago, it was us and WSWA walking into the room representing the low dose THC beverage category. That was really it. Now you have NACS that's being vocal about, wanting safe access to these products through retailers like theirs that age gate and sell more age gated products than any other channel. Now you have ABL, American Beverage Licensees Group. They've come out with a statement in support of low dose THC beverage. You have, like I already mentioned, NACS, you have WSWA, you have us, you have the entire supply chain pretty much represented now. You have the three-tier system walking into the room together saying, this is what we want for low-dose THC beverage. Now, right now, we're all unified asking for an extension. But when it comes time for us to get legislation through at the state level, at the federal level that may be more specific, we are going to be walking in as a unified front. And that is going to be extremely powerful. There are a lot of things, to get senators back, and it's going to vary by market. I think it's going to come from the influence of um, some of the states. If the states already have regulations, I think that is where we're seeing a lot of pressure coming from different markets. Is like, hey, their wholesalers are getting involved. The retailers are saying we don't want this to go away. We are close to getting, I think, a handful of champions in the Senate, but we have a limited time frame, and we have to move very quickly. We obviously know that McConnell, the ink is barely dry on what he just got through. McConnell is still not likely to advocate for he's definitely not going to advocate for the extension, or I would assume he won't. But it depends on whether or not this is something that he wants to stand up and fight against again. I mean, obviously we know we have a handful of senators like Rand Paul that are willing to be vocal, but we need more. So it's going to be a combination of the farmers, jobs, but the extension, the best thing about the extension, or I should say the best support we have behind that extension is the farmers. Ultimately, states that are growing hemp should have their senators behind this 100%. It's why we're seeing support so much on the House side coming out of states like Kentucky, which is obviously a huge hemp state. So we are, focused on markets that are growing hemp, that are part of that supply chain, and that's going to be, I think, a huge influence on getting people from the Senate. Are we utilizing Gen Z and millennial voices to champion the cause? Um, there's a lot of PR campaigns right now that are being deployed in various markets. There's also a lot of things that are happening, I think, with national media. I think there's been a lot of coverage on this topic. Ultimately, we have to pay attention to what our audience, and right now that's Congress, wants to hear from, and their most valuable target right now is that female 30 to 45-year-old voter. So yes, we do want Gen Z and millennial voices to be louder about this. And I think ultimately a lot of the retailers are taking that into their own hands to a degree and trying to get them to be vocal advocates and speak up at the state level. I would like to see a more organized state level campaign, but here's what I'm going to say. I've presented, I think I presented this publicly, what I'd like to do for our marketing PR strategy. All of this requires funds. Without funding, we can't move on any of it. And ultimately, this is where we need a lot of people to lean in. There's no reason that we shouldn't have a sign in every retailer that says, scan here, it takes you to this website, here's where the letter goes. There's no reason that shouldn't exist already. But we need the funding to do it. We need to build the baseline. We need to build the foundation behind it. And those programs aren't even necessarily expensive, but we need to build the tools. And we do need to be able to get more resources so we can execute not only the PR pieces, but the things that really move the needle on the hill. For example, there are services where you can target representatives and make sure that they are getting the latest and greatest updates on your targeted issue. Those programs are going to cost between $50,000 and $100,000 a month, minimum. We need those funds to be able to do that. And that's going to have the most valuable impact on top of getting constituents to be vocal. Right now, the focus has been the farmers, since that's really where the biggest demand for that extension is coming from. But obviously, the extension benefits us as well. And we want to make sure that the voices are being heard, that they don't want to see these products go away. Can and a number of other brands did create their own campaigns so that consumers could engage. They got thousands of responses. All of that is valuable and can be leveraged in lobbying efforts as well as in media. So I think there are individual efforts happening. There is a hemp steering committee that is working very closely on sharing those resources. Right now, our focus has been these fly-ins, organizing our message, making sure that we are extremely unified in that voice. But the more dollars, the more we can execute on. And that's always been where CABA sits. Right now, our current budget is going towards our two lobby firms, as well as fundraising for attending congressmen's events and making sure that we are, meeting with the key stakeholders that will have influence over this. We need to do more. There's no doubt about it. Ultimately, that does require funds. So that's why you see me asking. There's a reason I was never in sales. I don't like to ask for dollars if I don't have to. We need dollars, and the whole industry needs to be responsible for that. This isn't just a beverage ask. This isn't just hemp beverage or alcohol or any of that. This is the entire industry. If you are involved in this industry in any way, as an ancillary service, as a brand, as a wholesaler, as a retailer, contribute. And whether that's through CABA or through another association, that doesn't matter, as long as you're involved in it and helping fund those initiatives. I think I mentioned earlier in the presentation, polling is going to, be very impactful in this. Polling was extremely influential in the Texas veto, proving the demand for these products. There's been polling and surveys done by the Center for Alcohol Policy that shows that consumers want these products regulated like alcohol. All of that data is impactful because right now our industry has a lack of data. So the more we can do from a polling standpoint, the more information we can show who our consumer is, where they buy, where they're shopping for this, that these are not the stigma and the stereotype that a lot of the people we're dealing with have always envisioned. I went through the DARE program. Everyone knows what they put in front of you. And if you're based in DC, I can tell you there's cannabis here, but it's a very different marketplace. You don't have access to THC beverages in DC. You don't have access to hemp products the same way Texas has access. So a lot of the people we're talking to, we have to really walk them through what these other state atmospheres look like because they're based here. They're living in Virginia and Maryland. Maryland does not have a hemp program. Virginia does have a hemp program. This is why some of our champions come from certain states. We are trying to leverage that as best we can, but it does require budgets and dollars for us to, make progress and make progress quickly with timelines like, hey, we have January 30th. If we don't get the extension request and we're still asking for the extension request after January 30th, the next time that can be introduced is May. We will have time, but if we're still raising dollars by that point, it is going to be problematic. We need to bring in as many dollars as we can now so that we can execute the plans that we've built, which the faster we get this stuff done, the faster more wholesalers enter the market, the more retailers expand into other states. We need to show traction in the next 6 months for us to not see declines in inventory, for us to not see declines, or retailers start not taking all their brands anymore and just, maybe taking their leading brands. We need to be thinking that way. So it's important that the dollars come in now and that they're spent wisely. And if you have questions on the strategy, I've always said strategy doesn't belong on LinkedIn. It's typically not public knowledge. And the reason for that is so that, you make your strategy public, everyone works against you. If you're playing in the Super Bowl, you don't put all of your plays out online and say, these are the plays we're running, because guess what the other team's going to do? There are people that aren't lobbying in support of this, and we need to be aware of that. That's why the dollars are so important. We need to be executing a multi-pronged approach that is PR, advocacy, supporting the congressman, especially during an election year. There's a lot of opportunities to get involved with your state level congressman as well as at the federal level, dealing with the federal issues. But it's going to come down to us having dollars and being able to support that. I have heard of numerous PACs being created. Those are, political action committees, if you will, where they fund and pull dollars together to fund different initiatives and support different champions. Those are being created by various groups. I don't believe they've been finalized yet, but once they're formalized, we'll be able to kind of direct people to different PACs if that's how they would like to participate. For those that haven't gotten involved in some of the federal lobbying as an individual, you can donate dollars, and there is a cap. Per year in terms of what you can spend and where. So there's all sorts of different guardrails. In the future, I would like to do a training, and that would be a separate call, not necessarily the monthly call, training on what this, a training on what strategies are available to you so that you know how you can utilize your dollars, because I think a lot of people have questions about how to do that. And you can do it through a group or you can do it individually. Myself and a handful of others are rotating through so that we can make sure we hit everyone. I'm not always available to go to everything. So sometimes we send someone else to a fundraiser. But personal dollars versus PAC dollars are different. How they're spent's different. The cost to participate in an event is different if it's personal dollars versus PAC. So there's a lot of things that we will probably train people on in the future. But unfortunately, just because we're working on getting the work done versus training, we're not prioritizing that training right now. Hopefully after January 30th, we will have some air cover that allows us to prepare the baseline and educate people on what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it that way, in a way that other people can participate and be more active at the state level. But right now, we need advocates in the Senate. Any champion is a good champion, but if you are based or active in any markets, make sure that those state level associations are aware of the risk, aware of the ask that we are asking for an extension. If any of those groups have questions and you're not sure how to answer those questions, put them in contact with me. I'm happy to give as much guidance as I can so they can be involved. And yeah, there aren't any more questions. I'll let you guys go because I realize I went over time. I apologize. Very chatty today. It's been a long week of talking on the Hill. So I feel like I'm rambling a little, but overall, I want you guys to know I'm really grateful for all of your participation and support. A lot of you have reached out about donating dollars and being involved. And I think it's really hard when you're running a business to also also be involved in all the advocacy and policy work. So thank you guys for dedicating so much time and so much in resources to this issue. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you, Ruth. I appreciate the that you attend all my webinars and that you find them valuable. And if there are any topics before all of you jump off, if there are any topics you want me to cover in the next one that you don't think I've covered in depth enough, please let me know. Shoot me an email. Want to make sure that I'm answering the questions and talking about the issues that you guys have top of mind. So let me know. And unless there's another immediate call, we'll talk next the third Thursday of next month. So Happy New Year. Thank you, everyone. Let me know how I can help and be a resource to you. Have a great rest of your day.